Greetings, travelers. I'm your host, the C-Dot that knows a lot, Dr. Waluigi. Well, we're getting close to finishing off this series, folks. Just one more season of the Raccoons, and then I'll have to find another series to talk about.
The horror! The horror!
We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. For now, let's dive right into the 4th season of the Raccoons.
When darkness falls, leaving shadows in the...
Kicking things off, we get a new location for the series, as well as a really touching episode involving Cyril. Schaefer has opened up a new cafe called the Blue Spruce and is looking for an opening act, wherein walks an old rock singer named Woodchuck Berry, who auditions and becomes the lead entertainer for the cafe. At the same time, the pigs form a plan to trick old Chucky into a contract so that they can make loads of money off of him. I'll start by saying that I like that the showrunners finally gave something more for Schaefer to do with him opening up his own location, since the creators had gotten rid of the Ranger family several seasons ago, and it just felt like Schaefer was floating around with nothing to do. But I'd say the best part is learning about Cyril and Woodchuck's history, as they were schoolmates and band partners, which it turned out that Cyril was a great saxophone player, but he had terrible stage fright, which led to him regretting never getting the courage to face his stage fright and play with Woodchuck. That is until Woody tricks Cyril into playing with him at the cafe after he pretends to have stage fright of his own. It's a sweet and tender moment for Cyril, and is a great way to start the season.
When darkness falls, leaving shadows in the...
A Ralph-centered episode that honestly falls flat on its propeller rather than soars through the sky. A hotshot pilot named Troy Malone comes to the Evergreen Forest to compete in the Evergreen Air Show, who ends up hitting on Melissa much to Ralph's annoyance. So he decides to enter into the air show as Cyril's pilot in order to win back Melissa's affections. Yeah, from my description, you can probably tell that this is a very generic jealousy-based episode that honestly is just as tiresome as all of the other jealousy-based episodes that I've seen. And while I do like the designs of the planes and the maneuvers that they perform, it really isn't worth the watch just to see Ralph learn a lesson in not being jealous of someone who has a more exciting career.
When darkness falls, leaving shadows in the...
Oh goody, a bullying episode that isn't horribly written? In order to seal a deal with Mr. Knox, Cyril agrees to watch his spoiled brat nephew, Bonneville, for the weekend, which leads to Bonneville bullying Cedric until he stands up to Bonneville, where they become friends. I will say that despite the basic premise of this episode, I do like that they make Bonneville understandable in his bullying. He's acting out because no one wants him around, having been shuffled from family member to family member, and feels like no one cares about him, not even being able to make friends with the family he stays with. Though when Cedric ends up fighting back, it does lead to him and Bonneville becoming good friends. Like I said, this episode is predictable with its premise and message of dealing with bullies, but I do like it much more than the previous episode that had a terribly executed message.
When darkness falls, leaving shadows in the...
The second episode that takes place in the Blue Spruce Cafe involves quite a heated dispute. Lady Baden-Baden is feeling bored and wants more out of her life than just hosting charities and parties. So Melissa suggests that she work at the cafe, which Schaefer agrees to. But when Mr. Knox finds out, he gets upset due to his closed-minded views on how ladies of high society shouldn't work when they're married. Yeah, this episode may put some people off by how Mr. Knox reacts, but he and Lady Baden-Baden do make up, and he apologizes for the way he acted. But the episode is mostly pretty good for the comedic moments of Lady Baden-Baden trying to make the cafe more appealing to the high society crowd. A decent episode that has some really dated writing.
When darkness falls, leaving shadows in the...
Oh boy, this episode is quite the dumb one. Bert, Cedric, and Brew discover where a meteorite has landed and decide to go and look for it, which ends up to them both being stranded on an island with Bert hurt and the others going crazy looking for them, with Lady Baden-Baden using her astronomy charts to help find them. This episode is one that I'm not sure how I feel about because it has a good message about making sure to tell people where you are going so that they can find you in an emergency, but the writing makes the characters and the audience feel stupid. Like having Bert and Cedric's boat set away because Bert didn't properly tie it to the shore, or having the rest of the characters try to find Bert and Cedric by having Lady Baden-Baden consult her astrology maps? Really? They don't try and search for them with a helicopter or try and figure out where they were last seen? I mean, they do use a helicopter, but why have this stupid subplot of Mr. Knox claiming that Lady Baden-Baden's astrology is what's making him money? It just leads to a poor liar revealed subplot and could have led to two of our characters almost dying.
When darkness falls, leaving shadows in the
If you saw the title card for this review, yes, this is the episode where we meet Bert's future girlfriend. Bentley returns to the Evergreen Forest to hang out with Bert, but he brought along a surprise guest with him, his older sister, Lisa, who Bert falls head over heels in love with and ends up trying to win her affections. Meanwhile, Cyril hears that one of his heroes has been staying at Mr. Knox's and tries to meet him to cut him in on a deal. However, his antics lead to him jeopardizing a father-son weekend retreat that he had planned with Cedric. I will say that for her introduction, Lisa isn't too bad of a character. She's charming and has a great design to boot. Though I will admit that the ways Bert tries to win her affections are a little cringe. As far as the Cyril subplot goes, it's okay. I really didn't feel that much when it came to this part of the episode, as the previous 3 seasons have given us great Cedric and Cyril episodes already, and this subplot just felt like a repeat of those episodes. Overall, a decent character introduction episode, if a little cringy.
when darkness falls, leaving shadows in the
Speaking of great Cedric and Cyril episodes, we get another one involving more of the Sneer lore. Lady Bottenbotten decides to make a book about the history of the Evergreen Forest's wealthy families and asks Cyril to provide some missing documents of his family tree, which leads to Cedric and Bert trying to find the missing documents, only for Bert discovering by accident that the missing documents are adoption papers. While you may think that this is leading to the reveal of Cedric being the one who was adopted, the twist is that Cyril is the one who was adopted into the Sneer family. I find it interesting that they chose to have Cyril be adopted and hiding it because he felt ashamed that he didn't feel like a true Sneer and that he was too embarrassed to tell Cedric. I love how the writers made Cyril such a flawed character in this show and not the stereotypical billionaire tycoon in other shows of the time. Sure, Cyril has gone after Cedric's friends and done bad things to gain wealth, but he's still a good father and has made up for his mistakes by doing more for the forest and helping support Lady Bottenbotten's charities.
when darkness falls, leaving shadows in the
This episode is one that involves magic, sorcery, and a lesson in hard work. A famous magician named the Great Trombone has come to the Evergreen Forest and Bert wants to become his apprentice. He gets the job, but finds learning his first trick to be disappointing and tries to skip the basics and do more advanced magic tricks, which leads to him getting in over his head. This is another learning to be patient episode, but it's one that I find as a good example for kids who need to learn if they want to progress in something they want to enjoy, they need to be patient. I know that many of us can relate to Bert and how we wanted to be the best in something we tried, but it took many years before we got to perfecting our art. I also like that Trombone doesn't lose his cool or patience with Bert and ends up helping give him the confidence boost and his own trick that he can perform at the end of the episode. It's nice to see when a master understands and is patient with an apprentice because they were in the same shoes.
when darkness falls, leaving shadows in the
Another Bentley episode that will make you feel nostalgic for your younger years. Bentley comes back to the Evergreen Forest where Cedric and Bert take him to visit their old schoolhouse. Sadly, they learn that the schoolhouse is closing down due to it being too out of date. But they all try to pitch in and update the schoolhouse and keep its teacher in the Evergreen Forest. I'd say this episode is one that older audiences and fans can appreciate because of how it connects to their nostalgia of the first days of going to school. I myself do remember my early school days, and they were very much like how Bert and Cedric felt after revisiting their school and discovering it is closing down and how all of those memories will be gone with the school being torn down. Even Bentley's feelings are something I can relate to, as I remember how scary it was starting in a new grade and in a new school. This episode certainly makes one feel nostalgic by going back to the early days of school life.
when darkness falls, leaving shadows in the
Honestly, this episode is quite forgettable. Both Cedric and Bert are planning on entering a science fair, with Cedric wanting to build a new kind of flying machine, and Bert looking for any dinosaur bones that may be in the surrounding area. However, Cyril ends up taking over Cedric's project, and the pigs end up messing with Bert by placing all of Snag's bones into a tar pit that Bert recently found. Like I said, this is a very forgettable episode that could have been another good Cyril and Cedric focused episode, but it comes off more like the MLP Friendship is Magic episode, The Cart Before the Ponies, where the Crusaders end up getting their projects taken over by their older siblings. Even the B-plot isn't that much better, as the pigs feel like they're only there to stop Bert just to give them something to do in this episode. This is a hard pass of an episode.
when darkness falls, leaving shadows in the
We thankfully, get a better pig episode, but it sadly gives us the dumbest Knox and Cyril episode. Bert and Cedric are entering into a skateboarding contest in order to win a brand new skateboard. However, Cyril and Mr. Knox also plan on entering the contest in order to gain the right to sell their own brand of skateboards. At the same time, two of the pigs are discussing about their comic book collection and their favorite superhero, Mudman, which leaves the third member left out as he has no comics of his own, leading to him stealing the newest issue of Mudman and lying to his brothers about having a friend who can get the newest issues of any comics. I feel like the main plot of this episode feels a little too silly, as the whole contest part of the episode was and has already been done better in an earlier season. But the second part with the pigs is one that I was more interested in. Despite the basic stealing is bad moral, I do relate to Lloyd, or Pig 3, who just wants to be included with his brother's fun. But his good intentions lead him into doing something wrong. A great pigs episode, but is stuck with a bad main premise.
When darkness falls, leaving shadows.
A Phantom of the Opera parody? Yes, please! Cedric has written his own play and wants to present it in the Sneer's abandoned theater. However, strange things start to happen when a phantom starts causing accidents on and behind the stage. Not much else I can say with this one, as it's a great homage to my all-time favorite musical, with a few minor differences of course, but still a fun episode that I'd be more than happy to revisit.
When darkness falls, leaving shadows.
Well, here's our usual clip episode for the year, but thankfully it's one that is very limited on the clip usage. After Cyril finishes watching a talk show, the pigs decide to call the host of the show Barbara LaFrum, as they want payback for all of the years, or seasons in this case, of them being mistreated by Cyril. Meanwhile, Lady Baden-Baden and the rest of the gang are planning a fundraiser and have decided to host a bachelor auction with Cedric, Schaefer, and Bert as the ones who will be auctioned off. One fun fact is that Barbara was voiced by the actual celebrity she was based off of, Barbara Frum, who was a famous TV reporter in Canada. I'm happy to say that while this is a clip-episode, there are only 2 moments where we see the clips, and the rest of the episode focuses on the actual plot, which is kind of cute as we see all of the guys get some sort of date. Even Cyril gets a date with Barbara, though he does find a way to get away from her interview. Though one sad thing is that this would be the last episode with Sophia Tutu, as the creators felt that there were no new episodes they could make with her. Which is sad, as she was one of my favorite characters.
When darkness falls, leaving shadows.
Might be an obvious pick for me, but I love episode 12, with it being a Phantom of the Opera homage, as well as having a lot of great suspense in a show like this. Even the ending is one of my favorites, with Cedric helping the villain of the episode get what he wanted after Cyril ruined his first attempt at his own play.
When darkness falls, leaving shadows.
Another easy pick for me for the worst episode is episode 10. This is such a boring and forgettable episode that I wonder if it was made just to fill up the quota before we got to better episodes.
When darkness falls, leaving shadows.
While I wouldn't call this my favorite season, I do still think it's at least better than season 2. The episodes are of much higher quality in terms of the writing, but there were moments that I noticed where the audio would drop in quality. I even watched the episodes on Crave where they have the remastered versions, and there were still issues with the audio. But the season was still good despite the hiccups. Overall, I give season 4 of the Raccoons a 7 out of 10. There are more fun episodes in this season, but I will be curious when we finally finish the show next year. Thanks for watching, I'm Dr. Waluigi, and remember, don't judge a book by its cover, cause you'll never know what's inside. Good night, everyone.
When darkness